but just because we probably are live, I am your host, Alex Kessler, with my co-host, Ben Bateman. We are live, and we are releasing this podcast live this week. It's coming out early. It's coming out on a Tuesday. Normally we record on Tuesdays. It comes out Friday. If you are a Patreon, you do still get the raw feed that has all the bonus content at the beginning, but we are coming to you live today to talk to you about, good evening, Carson, the Omnath banning. There was a big banning announcement. A bunch of cards got a bunch of cards got banned. And then one card got unrestricted or taken off of the bad list. So super hyped. Got a lot of Hey Fox Ribble. This is going to be a live stream, so there's going to be more chat interaction than our normal episode. If you haven't noticed, I am dressed, or if you're listening to this audio only, I am dressed as a Dilophosaurus. I got my frills. I'm
dressed as a Pseudosaurus.
A Pseudosaurus. For those who don't know, I am doing a thing for every day in the month of October because COVID has ruined Halloween in the classic sense. I'm keeping the spirit of Halloween dead, but alive in the afterlife, undead, by wearing a costume every day. So I wore Indiana Jones in Yosemite Park on Saturday. Then I was Han Solo. I did a Harrison Ford weekend. And today I'm a Dilophosaurus.
We're excited to be here talking live Magic the Gathering with you. And yeah, there was a bunch of stuff that happened this week in Magic. I wasn't here last week, so I didn't get to talk with you on the what's it called stream, the one where we talked about The Walking Dead, which I know you had strong opinions on. You shared many opinions on that. But
have you been missing for 2 weeks? Because that was like 2 weeks ago.
I don't know if I was missing for 2 weeks, I was definitely...
2 weeks ago, we talked about The Walking Dead. Last week, we actually talked about, we had Shivan Bot from the Commander Advisory Group and Tappy Toeclaws, the actual dinosaur of the internet. I'm just wearing a costume. And we talked about the Commander Sealed League, which we actually might talk a little bit about today, but Commander Sealed League... or Boxing League, a Commander Boxing League, which is basically every person who's in the league opens a box, kind of builds a sealed deck straight up from that. We actually talked about it last week, and then we played my first game in the league, and I think Ben's first game in the league last night on the live stream, which is on the YouTube channel right now. You can check that out. It's called MMCast Gameplay Sealed Commander Boxing. Don't go watch it now. Watch it later. So that was really fun, and it's always great having Shivam on. It was actually... Tappy has been on a few of our live streams, but has never actually been on a official episode of the podcast. So that was her inaugural podcast run, which we were really, really excited about. Partially because it's one of the cool things that we get to do now that we're no longer just the Masters of Modern. We're now the MMCast podcast.
Yeah, we've expanded. We can talk about other forms. You've gotten me. I was talking to Jimmy Wong earlier today because I have an interview with him that's going to be posting on my Nerds and Suits YouTube channel that I do, as you know, called A Great Conversation. It's just an hour-long interview with Jimmy about all things in life. But one of the things we did talk about was Commander. And I was like, Alex has gotten me playing Commander every week now. It's a thing that's been happening for months. And I've built multiple decks and I've played multiple games. And he was like, wow. How are you liking it? And I was like, you know what? It's terrible. No, I'm kidding. I was like, you know what? It's pretty great. It's pretty great. So that was fun. And yeah, we talk about all kinds of stuff on Mondays. And last night was fun. It was too long. I will say that. Last night's game was insane. It was 4 hours. That was a beating.
I tried killing people much earlier on, and Michael did as well. You kept stopping Michael, and then I was able to maybe do something, but you got to check it out to find out. It is long. So something that we found in the Boxing League is that the first... week especially has just these much longer games because just the power level of different decks is just much lower than people would like. So it was one of the longest, I think, live streams we've done for Commander. We've done some pretty long ones, and it was like one single game. So previously, normally we can hit that 4 hour mark, like playing a quick 1 hour game, and they're like, oh, that was quick. We could do another one. The next one's like a 3 hour game. This one was just 1 4 hour game. So check that out.
So we're going to be talking about a bunch of stuff tonight. We are going to be talking about all of the bannings. We are going to be doing a little bit of a deck tech into our particular decks that we do. In this Boxing League, as you mentioned, a big pinkies out to the Nobles of House Modern. Big time thank you to all you guys, the support that you offer us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/theMMCast. You guys are saints. We very much appreciate all of the support that we get from you as we do the content that we do. But I think let's talk about these bannings, Alex. I think there were suspensions, there were final bannings, there were unsuspensions. It's interesting that the format right now, the Eternal format that is getting the most play and discussion, is historic. Modern, because there's not a lot of Modern being played outside of, basically people playing it on Magic Online. Paper Eternal formats are a little harder to execute right now. So there's a lot of historic being played. And it's a really fun format. It's a format that's quickly evolving, and I have to be honest with you, feels pretty powerful already. There's a lot of really powerful cards that have been printed into Historic already, and the format feels like it's, I wouldn't say powered, but not that far from it.
It's interesting. It's going to be interesting just like for the rest of time or until one of them goes away, just like the difference between Historic and Pioneer and how they keep going. Like obviously COVID has put such a big focus on Historic. It being available in Arena is definitely a huge strength, and it's a really cool format. It's really fun. I do want to actually, you mentioned there were bannings. I do want to list what those bannings are for people that have not heard, or people that are listening to this far in the future. I want to be like, oh, which banning announcement was that in 2020? So this is the October 12th ban announcement. In Standard, Omnath, Locus of Creation, Lucky Clover, and Escape of the Wilds were banned. In Historic, Omnath was suspended. Teferi, Time Raveler, and Wilderness Reclamation are now officially banned, and Burning Tree Emissary is now unsuspended. So it was suspended. We'll get into what that means in a second. And then in Brawl, Omnath, Locus of Creation was also banned. Yeah, I think obviously the big one is they just nuked Omnath, the big face of the set for Zendikar Rising on the box, huge high-profile mythic. They realized that it was problematic, and they got rid of him. Thank you for the costume compliments. So we have... That was something that a lot of people thought wasn't going to be possible. There was a lot of people kind of debating how many cards do you need to ban to make it so Omnath isn't as good as it is. I do believe, hopefully, that at this point Wizards is learning that free 4-drops are a bad idea. We've now had between Wilderness Reclamation. Yeah. What's the red enchantment that makes everything free? You get to play 2 free things a turn.
Fires of Invention,
Omnath, Winota to some extent. Just like all of these things that are like, oh, here's a 4-drop and it's free. Even Nissa to a certain extent is a 5-drop. I think they like decided just to nuke it. They're like, you know what? This is a problem. We've now sold all the pre-release of boxes due to COVID. We're not living in an environment where people are going to directly buy more packs to try and get it Omnath. What they are going to try and do in paper is like draft maybe, which like Omnath doesn't affect, or like buy cards for Commander or Modern or Eternal format. So for paper Magic, it doesn't really affect anything. And then on Arena, it's no longer in packs, right? They banned it and it just probably won't show up. Or if it shows up in limited, it's like a getting a bad rare, right? Like there are tons of cards that you can get that are just like worth nothing. So
I think the reason, so I think there's a couple things to examine here. Let's just take the card Omnath really quickly and break down kind of what makes it so good. So the card Omnath, Locus of Creation is red, green, white, blue. He is a legendary creature elemental 4/4. When Omnath, Locus of Creation enters the battlefield, draw a card. So right off the bat, you got a 4-mana 4/4 that draws a card. We're going to get to in a second power level concerns, just what that means compared to old 4-mana cards. Landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 4 life. If this is the first time this ability has resolved this turn, if it's the second time, add his mana cost. If it's the third time, Omnath deals 4 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker you don't control. So, what this card means is, you play a 4-mana 4/4 that draws a card. Just straight off the bat, right? That's how the card starts. That's the beginning base level, what you're getting out of the card. After that, there are so many different effects that allow you to sacrifice a land to put a land into play. There are so many fetch land effects. There are additional land effects that run rampant right now. I mean, Growth Spiral, you have both of Explore and Growth Spiral in Historic. You have the card Uro, which in itself is a problem anyway. So lots and lots and lots of things that are just like put extra lands into play and draw cards. But this card is such an overwhelming advantage because it's just a 4-mana 4/4. Already, which by its own rate in the old days of Magic, a green 4-mana 4/4 was already a pretty good rate. Like Magic was designed at one time where that was pretty pushed. 4-mana 5/5s became like thing you were getting. So the fact that you're getting a 4-mana 4/4 that just by playing lands, the single most ubiquitous thing that decks in Magic do, the thing completely takes over the game. It's good enough on its own to be a problem, but then combined with any of the other things we're talking about, like basically just cards that allow you to draw cards and play additional lands, are issues. And there are so many of them now. This card is just right at the heart of it. You don't need this card for those things to be good anyway. This card is just like tailor-made. It means it's a 3-drop. and as a 4-drop, you have the ability to play Fabled Passage and get 2 triggers out of it that very turn. It's just it's obvious why it's so good, but it's almost like it's so obvious. How did this even happen? Like I look at the card and I'm just like, what?
So part of me, I have like my own theory on how I'm going to move Omnath out of the way now that everyone knows what he looks like. I'm going to just let him peek out from the bottom here. My personal theory on Omnath is that that maybe early in design he was a different card, that Omnath was Phylath, or and then someone on the team was like, when it got farther down the line, was like, oh wait, there is a meme here. We can't have Omnath, this card that has been adding a color every set. Thanks for the follow, everybody's at getting a card every set. Adding a color, not go to 4 colors, right? So then like that got changed to a new card. They made it 4 colors. Okay, how do we do 4 colors? We don't have as much time as a normal card. All right, so let's just like have him do a thing when he enters, and then every other color can go down the line with landfall. And the more lands you play, the more you get. You get 1 additional effect, and then it goes down the 4 colors that he is. And then it just didn't get the same amount of testing that other cards did. I also think there is a little bit of a push to just like make cards powerful, right? Like that's obviously been going on. And I think I'm hoping Zendikar was like, because like based on timelines, right? Wizards is working on a 2-year ahead basis, if not a year ahead basis. And like they really started noticing, oh crap, power level concerns are a real thing we need to be worrying about in December last year. Like when Oko really became such a problem with Once Upon a Time, with Summer or Veil of Summer, plus the War of the Spark Planeswalkers. And that's when they started kind of maybe reevaluating. And most of Rise of Zendikar was probably completed at that point. And I think also just like 4 colors has never been good before. Right, like 4 color, like it's almost a 5 color card, and 5 color cards have rarely been powerful in constructed formats. So going down 1 color, like none of the Nephilids ever saw play. Okay, we have confirmation. Eric Lauer made it was Ashaya. Ashaya was Omnath, which is the green elemental, and then they were like, no, you need to make it into. Omnath needs to be 4 colors. So thank you, Carson, for confirming that is what happened. Yay, my theory was correct. And then so like, where was I at? Oh yeah, I think they just didn't think 4 colors were going to be good. Like I think they thought, oh, that's too hard to do. Little did, obviously like I think they underestimated the power of Oka or Uro. I think they underestimated the power of these things. I think they thought Lotus Cobra wasn't that good in standard last time, right? Like Lotus Cobra was maybe an okay card and saw some play, but it was not what people thought it was going to be. Like people thought it was going to be the next coming of the best card in the format. And then like Valakut and Jace and Stoneforge Mystic ended up being that, and Lotus Cobra just kind of was sad. And
I think it's largely because the things in 2011 that you were doing, 2012 that you were doing with your mana were just a lot less like beefy. Like they just weren't as like insane, just like the rate, you know what I mean? It's that inevitability thing we talk about all the time. We've talked about it many, many times now. The design of cards are such that if you can resolve them, let alone 2 of them, your opponent won't win unless they have similarly weighted haymakers. But many of the other styles in Magic, which if it's just like Drago control or tempo, can't really handle you resolving giant threats and then untapping with them. They just don't do very well with it. Like you get so much advantage out of this 1 card that if they the shields come down for 1 second, it's just kind of game over unless they have unless they can play their own giant threat. So it sort of means the only thing you can be doing is just playing those cards.
Right. And this has kind of been a complaint I've had, and I had this with a lot of the brawl precons last year as well. Like drawing a card is too much of a benefit and too lazy of a benefit for anything is kind of where I'm almost at, right? Like Omnath drawing you a card, there's other thing it could have done that's blue, right? It could have like bounced a thing, and bouncing things sounds terrible, but like I mean not terrible, but like
it could
bad
have
for metagame.
Scryed 3.
Correct.
Scryed 3.
Correct. Exactly. And or like it could have explored, right? It could have had the explore text of like reveal the top card. If it's a land, you draw it. Which like kind of plays with what he's trying to do. Like there's different things it could have done. I mean, hell, it could have like done like it could have bubbled something, right? Just like that thing gets -3, -0 until your next. Like there's so many things it could have done. Or yeah, Carson's saying draw a card the last thing and maybe do like when it enters play, do 2 damage to each opponent when it enters play.
I got a fun idea with this card.
Okay.
What if the text had read?
Oko should have been mono white. I agree. I like that idea. Keep going.
When Omnath enters the battlefield, you may return 2 lands you control to their owner's hand. If you do, draw a card. So it's cool because the landfall ability, you get your lands back. So like you get to trigger, but if this thing comes down, you're super far behind on tempo if it just gets killed. Like it means you can get your card, but you have lands back in hand, and now you're slowed way back down. You think it's still too good? You think that's like just awesome because replaying lands is so good?
Remember, it just has to be a specific color ability, right? So like, what is that a white? That's like so unknown on which color I feel like that belongs to, because that effect has been seen in white, blue,
feels blue green
and green. But like white returns permanents to your hand when something enters, right? It like lets you blink and save things.
It's fair, yeah.
Especially as a cost, that's like a very white thing. Carson likes bouncing 2 lands to your hand. I think that's cool, right? Like I would love that card. It would be really fun to play with. I also don't hate like just like loaming when he enters play.
I think with the returning 2 lands to draw, actually, now that I think about it, this is one of those things where, yeah, on curve, it sounds like a drawback enough that it might slow you down. But if you ever drew this card at the point in the game when you have 9 lands on the battlefield and you just play it and you return 2 lands and draw a card, and now you just have lands to play to trigger landfall a million times, like that seems still in fact, almost better in some ways to have that much gas.
That's why I would like shuffle what each of the colors is, because I actually think a bigger problem is the mana production, right? Like drawing a card is really good, and like it inherently is problematic that it's the opening ability. But like if it was its 4th ability was draw a card, and then when it entered it had a different greedy ability than making mana, maybe like returning lands from your graveyard to your hand, or like I guess it could like it can't put a land into play because then it just triggers the landfall, which like becomes maybe problematic the turn it enters play. Right. But yeah, I think there's cool things you could do. And blue does let you bounce lands to your hand. So yeah, I think there's a bunch of different stuff that, like, these are all like Celebi, right? Like the world could have been different and Omnath did something different. I'm still super excited for 5-color Omnath. I hope this doesn't hurt our chances of getting Omnath adding black to his color pie, and then my personal hope is that like the next time we go to Zendikar, there's like hints that there are Eldrazi things happening, right? Like we go back and forth and there's maybe a little bit more of that effect, and then we get like 6 mana Omnath that has the colorless symbol,
the
like
Wooburg, or Wooburg and the Wingding.
Yeah,
what about if you were to add black to Omnath? Could that be him being taken over by like Innistrad evil kind of a thing? Like the whole like. Could you represent that and then could that be a thing, or am I just now spitballing?
I haven't finished the story yet for Zendikar, but I know that like obviously the plot is about Nahiri trying to destroy the Royal, and Omnath is like the representation of the Royal, and I feel like him adding black is like a final balance of the color pie, right? Like he's now accepted, like he defeats Nahiri and takes in all bad and all good of the plane and becomes this like balanced creature. So yeah, I think it becomes more of a balancing thing. I think it's more about finding unity among the color pie, not becoming corrupted. I think if he gets Emrakul Wingding magic, maybe that's corruption, right? That's like the 6th set that like Emrakul comes back after escaping the moon. But I think when it gets black, I think it becomes like true chaotic neutral. Carson brings up, I think is more likely.
Let me ask you a question. So as a 4-drop. Let's just say, so this card gets you all kinds of cool advantage. You're playing 4 colors. What if you compare this to Solemn Simulacrum as a 4-drop, where it costs you no colors? You can play it in any deck. Comes down, gets you a land, and when it dies, draws you a card. So it's like it has elements, has very like sort of reminiscent elements of what Omnath is doing. It just doesn't have any of the inevitability.
Sure.
Do you think the balance of 0 colors versus 4 colors there is correct? Or do you think like that one, you know what I'm saying? Or do you think the scale up, what you get for adding 4 colors, is still just way off the charts? Because I feel like Solemn is like a fair idea of what that card's doing, sort of.
I think it's interesting, right? So like that those cards are so similar. I mean, Solemn's been good always, right? It's still a commander staple.
Yeah, forever.
And its ability to do that is something that like Omnath is close to. I think part of it is that Omnath is going to be like, I don't think Wizards, and I said this earlier in Con Snap, bring it again. I don't think Wizards thought 4 colors is playable, so they just pushed it, right? Like, I think that's part of the issue. And drawing a card and ramping without dying, right? Like if Solemn drew a card and then like something put, find the land and put into play, or find a land put and then draws a card. Like, it's way better than it is now, right? And it's still really good. So Omnath is like, the draw card happens, plus you get mana, plus you gain 4 life, plus like.
There's also something cool about the idea that Solemn is an artifact, so it's not alive, and that like Omnath is so alive, it has 4 colors, so it's so much more vibrant what it's able to do. It does so much more. There's like sort of a cool comparison there. But anyway, all that being said, this card needed to be banned. It's been banned in multiple formats. It's better for Historic that it's gone. For now anyway. It's suspended in Historic, right? Or it's just banned straight up.
It is let me bring up the announcement. Sorry, I left. I believe it is
banned for sure. Banned in Standard.
Suspended. It's suspended in Historic.
Yeah, so it'll stay suspended and then banned eventually. I don't think there's any way they bring it out. It's really, really good. So the other things that are interesting that happened in Standard, you have Lucky Clover, which is an adventure double trigger card, and you have Escape to the Wilds, I think it's called, or Escape of the Wilds. The 5-drop green red 3. Exile the top 5 cards of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play these cards, and you can play an additional land this turn, I believe, is what it is. And it's just a big like haymaker card draw card in Gruul, which is cool. It's more just about the fact, I think, that this card just gives you lots and lots and lots of gas with any of the things that are allowing you to accelerate ahead. And ultimately, go ahead.
So actually, it's a little bit of that. What it really is it's too good with Lotus Cobra.
Gotcha. You can ramp into it on turn 3.
And Scoot, not Scoot Mob, but the new Scoot something. Like
Scoot
basically
Swarm.
Scoot Swarm. Basically, like, this card is too powerful with every single landfall card. Basically, just it was too good with those landfall cards, and I think they were afraid of like, how many landfall cards would we have to ban to make this card fine? B, like, they already banned 1 card from their most recent set. They want Landfall to be good. They want Lotus Cobra to be a cool card. So banning this like random rare from a year ago that didn't see play for literally a year it's the same reason they kind of like banned
Seething Song?
Seething Song. The reason they banned Seething Song versus Grape Shot, right? Like this is the card that pushes this other card that creates a unique archetype too far. And I think that's what this was about. Was just like, we don't want to miss. We don't want to ban Omnath and then 2 weeks from now have to ban Lotus Cobra or more cards because we just missed outright. And so let's get rid of it.
What do you think as people's and then Lucky Clover is pretty self-explanatory. It's just like very, very good in its particular archetype, and it just means it's the card if you want to kill that archetype or severely hamper it, you have to get rid of it. Like it's a pretty one-of-one card within the format. There's nothing else that like slots in to replace it.
Yeah, in the article they basically said like Tavern Keeper will keep the deck alive. Like I think Adventures doesn't necessarily go away because they have that card, but like Lucky Clover was very difficult to interact with, and if they had not gotten rid of it, it was already primed to just be the best deck in the format. It was already doing well playing with and without Omnath, so getting rid of Omnath would just make this deck the best deck in the format by a wide margin. And I think they're just trying to nip in the bud with a card type that's hard to deal with, right? It's an artifact, so there's not a lot of removal that you can use to kind of stop it, or you have to be playing very specific types of removal. So they're just like, you know what? We're done. Let's get this stuff out of the way. And then we can move on. I do want to do a quick shout out before we move past Standard. Thank you everyone who's here still. Please follow. We do Commander content every Monday. We do a podcast that we release on our YouTube channel every Friday called the MMCast Podcast. We used to be the Masters of Modern. I am Alex Kessler. This is Ben Bateman. I am currently dressed like a Dilophosaurus because it's Halloween month and I'm dressing like a costume every day. Once again, thank you, Olivia, for the raid and CDH Brazil for the raid. This is our podcast. We normally don't do it live. We're just doing it live this week because the recent banning announcement. Whenever there's a banning announcement, we do a live episode, and then normally we release it on Fridays. But we do Commander content here every Monday night, 7:30 Pacific Standard Time. And yes, I am dressed as Tappy. I have a picture of her in this costume.
And if you guys have any questions, anything like that, our Streamlabs, our super chats are open, so you're welcome to throw them in on YouTube. We'll read them out on the air. If you're watching on YouTube right now, there's a bunch of you watching live. Hit that thumbs up, guys. Hit the like button. The likes on these videos really do help them do better. It means a lot to the video, so please hit that thumbs up. If you haven't already, if you're watching right now and you're having a good time, just hit the thumbs up button. So, Alex, you talked about we're going to move past Standard. So, there were some interesting bannings there. Let's talk a little bit of Historic. It's in a format that, obviously we are excited about right now. I've been playing a ton of it. I played a blue-green Merfolk deck for a while. I played a Jeskai Super Friends list with Gideon and Pact of Negation that I did pretty well with. And then now I'm back to playing Blue-Black Rogues, which is, I think, a Mythic level deck. I will get to Mythic this season with it. I was 3 games away from it last season. This time I'm actually going to, knuckle down and make sure I get there. And it's a super fun format. It's a really healthy, really great format. And so there were a few changes made. They have this thing they do in Historic that we talked about it. It's called suspending, and it's kind of like a temporary watch list ban. You keep a card on there for a little while, and then you can make the decision if you want to keep it off or if you want to. And so Omnath has been put on the suspended list. Burning Tree Emissary was on the suspended list for quite a while. It has now come off, which is interesting. That is now legal. It's obviously that card's a favorite of mine. It's one I used to play in Superior, Burning Cocoa, and Modern a lot. It's a very aggressive card. It does some really, really cool stuff. We don't have Aether Vial, of course, in the format, so I'm not able to do, or Mere Superior for that matter. But
hashtag, and if everyone who's watching now and or in the future can go on Twitter and tag Wizards of the Coast, hashtag print Mere Superior into Historic.
It's just like what an easy Historic anthology card to print. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it would hurt no one. It would just be like a free card that would make Ben very happy.
If in the next Historic anthology they put both Aether Vial and Mere Superior into Historic, I'm going to know they were listening. I'm going to know they were listening to me, because Collected Company is already in there, and that would mean, like, just with that and Scavenging Ooze, I could do it. I could do enough of what I need. I could totally make it happen. So anyway, and I think Pack Rat. We already have Pack Rat in Historic, don't we?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was that was part of the whole game plan. I think so. Anyway, so it's a great format. It's one we've been having a lot of fun with. Have you been playing much Historic?
I have not. I haven't played Historic since Zendikar came out. Mostly because I've been playing a lot of the Sealed League, and then I was in Yosemite, and just life has been busy. Playing a lot of Among Us, which is, I guess, it's pretty suspect that I haven't played too much. I am super excited for Burning Tree Emissary. Like when it was suspended, it was in an era when like Gruul was just the best deck, and it was like doing really, really well. And then with Jumpstart plus Amonkhet Anthology or Amonkhet Remastered plus M21 plus Zendikar, like that's 4 sets worth of cards, and some of them are extremely powerful. I think it's fine. Like I don't think this is better than what Goblins is doing. And
that deck's good.
The other things like they like finally like, what? No one wants to play against Teferi Time Raveler ever again. And I'm like, yes, you're correct. As a person who loves blue-white control, who just wants to play Sphinx's Revelations and 5-mana Teferis and Stoneforge Mystics and Jace the Mind Sculptors, I am glad that people don't have to play against Teferi Time Raveler. Wilderness Reclamation, also banned. Also a card that I think we can all agree was probably a mistake. It shouldn't have been printed. It's
totally in the same vein. It's another 4-drop that basically replaces itself in the sense. I mean, this one's not in cards, but it replaces itself in mana right away. And again, there's just so many things that are expensive that gain you card advantage that takes over the game in itself. So yeah, Teferi Time Raveler and Wilderness Rec. Wilderness Rec is the one that like to me feels pretty obvious, but there isn't a good enough reason to keep that in the format.
Mm-hmm.
Teferi is like a really unfun card, so it's probably best that it's gone. But it's the kind of unfun card that's fragile enough that like there are plenty of ways to handle it. But I guess that the fact that it costs 3 is the issue. Like 5-mana Teferi is really powerful, but it's not that powerful because like it costs 5. So there's plenty of, they have to like really be kind of like, their deck has to be working for that card to beat you. Their deck doesn't really have to be doing that much for 3-mana Teferi to beat you. They just have to be able to untap with it. And then there's like,
yeah, I mean, in some ways it's almost like drawing a card on just a random thing is probably not a good idea, right? Like Teferi just comes into play, draws a card, and you have this threat that's impossible to deal with. Omnath comes into play and draws a card. Wilderness Reclamation doesn't draw a card, but it's an extremely difficult thing to remove, and it doubles your mana the turn it comes into play. Like these are things that are like historically, pun intended, you would have problems. Like obviously would be problems. I think they were just trying to do cool stuff, and big mana was the direction they were going in. A lot of people have talked towards that, like printing for Commander has been one of the problems. Just like they're designing cards for Commander now, versus Commander taking advantage of the cards designed for Standard, and I think that has been maybe an issue, right? It's hard to tell. Someone wrote a really good article, and I'm blanking on who it was, on how like the resources on what formats Wizards players are designing need to be a little bit more separated. Like the people building Standard sets shouldn't be Commander players or focused on Commander, and allowing different teams to focus on different stuff. But it's really hard. So I don't know. Teferi to me seems the same as the other cards. Is like another this enters play, draws you a card immediately while gaining. It kind of in some ways it draws you 2 cards, right? It draws you an unsummon and then draws you a card, and then makes it so your opponent can interact on the main axis most things interact.
Right. I mean, and yeah, I think that it costing 3, as we've said many times, is sort of the problem, because like, if you're on the play, there are some situations where you're going to get this down on turn 2. But even if you just do get it on the play in a lot of these formats, it's not Modern here, right? Like the removal and like the ways to answer are kind of efficient. You know, you can burn it out once you minus the card, but like even what's it called? Even Blood Chief's Vengeance or whatever, like the 1 black spell, they cost 4 with Kicker to like remove a Planeswalker that costs more than 2. Like you're not going to be able to deal with a Teferi that fast.
Right.
It's going to take you a second.
Right.
So it's just, yeah, it is right on the edge. I like Teferi, and I wonder if someday the format becomes powerful enough they can unban it. But as it stands now, it's probably better that it's gone.
I want it out of Modern. Like from that perspective, I don't think Historic will ever be more powerful than Modern is. I just don't think that world exists, and I think Teferi has been not overpowered. Like the problem with Teferi isn't power level necessarily, right? Like Judge Sam, who works at Cast, was talking about this the other day, right? Like from a power level perspective, he's relatively fine. The problem with Teferi is he negates strategies. If he's good in a format, he makes it so some strategies no longer can function. So he single-handedly undiversifies the format, and then on top of that is just a miserable play experience. And so from that perspective, why have it around? I've always argued, which is like why we have, I think, 2 different episodes where we talked about Blood Moon needs to be banned. I've always argued that there's like fun actually should be a consideration for ban announcements and format diversity, and how you're like, that's why format diversity is important. That is a fun conceit. Like that is a key conceit towards fun. And I think cards like Teferi just are like fun sucks. And why have them if all they're going to do is make people not want to play Magic? And then kind of the same with Blood Moon, right? Like Blood Moon makes it so you have to play fetch lands in Modern, otherwise your fetch mana base, like otherwise Blood Moon will just get you. And 2 isn't that good, but when it's good, it's just like, oh, I lose because you played a 3-drop enchantment. That like fine. And like, so obviously I don't think it needs to be banned from the perspective of power level. I don't think it's doing anything wrong to the format, and it is a police person against things doing things badly. But that card sucks. As does Teferi.
What is less fun for you to play against, Oro or Teferi Time Rattler?
Teferi.
Okay, just clear answer for you.
Yeah. I think Uro is more fun in older formats. I think Uro is way too powerful for Standard and arguably maybe Historic, but like I think when you get to Modern, I think it's fine. I think it's cool in Modern. Like it's like a better Lingering Souls. I like that it does stuff there. No, don't play both together. I also think, I don't know. That's where I'm at on those things. We did get a question from CDH Brazil, who we're going to be jumping onto their stream on Friday, so that'll be cool for some CDH content. Cool. What is your favorite Historic deck right now? They asked me specifically because I think they know what your answer is going to be. But if you want to go first, since we all know your answer.
I've been playing this Blue Black Rogues deck for a while now. I can give like the 30-second rundown of like what it is in case like I've just talked about it and haven't actually explained what it is. But basically it's similar to the Blue Black Rogues deck you see people playing so much now. I've been playing it for a few months, so I've gotten a lot of reps. I don't play the new 1-mana 1/1 that you can sack to draw a card if they have 8 cards in their graveyard. I play Fairy Miscreant. I do play Una's Blackguard. I play several copies of Curious Obsession. And then I play Fairy Vandal, and I play obviously the new 1/3 for 2. Some Lofty Denials, and kind of the best plays in the deck are like kind of getting down a Blackguard and then having the ability to like play your Fairy Miscreant. It comes down as a 2/2, maybe draws you a card. There are just some situations where you like Mind Twist your opponent because of the nature of getting multiple rogues down. You're playing Brazen Borrowers, and I am now playing 2 of the X3, the new flying Death Touch Lifelink rogue, which I don't like because he costs 3, but he's a little too powerful not to play, so you play 2 of him. But it's really good. The new blue-black land, the flip land, is like really good. It made the deck even better than it was. You're playing like Drown in the Loch. And yeah, it's a very, very powerful strategy. It's super low to the ground. You almost never have to mulligan. You can keep 1 and 2 landers really easily. And it's just super tempo-y and just does lots of damage really fast. So that's the deck I've been playing.
I think my favorite historic deck, and I actually haven't gotten to play it too much since Zendikar, but there's a bunch of new cards for it too, which is really exciting, is the Luros Companion red-black claim to fame sacrifice decks that are playing like Dreadhorde Arcanist and Citrus Supplier and Croxa and Young Pyromancer and all those cards. I think those are really cool. I also have a really sweet Dredge list that's like taking advantage of the 3/1 that whenever you gain 3 life, it comes into play from your graveyard, and Citrus Supplier and what's the 3 damage if you mill it? The drain 3.
Yes, Crippling Shell.
Creeping Shell, which then triggers the 3/1s that bring them into play, and it's playing Uro, so it gets to kind of do this cool loop thing. I was playing that before Zendikar Rising, so that was really fun, and then I've been playing the Sacrifice deck basically since last year, so I love that. And then Arclight Phoenix probably as well. I like the graveyard and getting things from the graveyard and putting them into play.
Tough situation for you these days with Uro being so popular. There's like a lot of decks that are main decking, that are just straight up main decking. What's it called? Grafdigger's Cage. I see like a lot of it these days.
It's fine. I mean, like
I don't care
like
about.
Some of the cards I'm talking, like this deck is fine against that. Yes, it's obviously really good, but they're also like playing a 1-mana do nothing. But yeah. Obviously, it's really good and main deckable because of Uro. But you live, you learn. What's cool is like you just get a lot of cool stuff now. Like the Zendikar stuff got you Agadeem Awakening and just like some of the cool like removal spells, and then. Yeah, you gotta play a Braids. That's all you need. Main deck of Braids.
Card's good, yeah. I play 1 copy of the Jawari Ruins or whatever, the tapped blue land that is a 4 spike for 2 mana. I found that card to be really good, so that's like my tech that I added in the land front. Sweet. But anyway, guys, so I think that's gonna wrap up most of what we have to say about the bannings. Unless Alex, you had anything else that you wanted to jump in. I wanted to spend a few minutes.
Oh, sorry. Really quickly, I wanted to talk about Omnath and Brawl. So Omnath was banned in Brawl. We talked about him in other formats, but the one thing here is like. It was too much of the metagame. It's just like I think actually Brawl is not equipped to handle many commanders that are more than 3 colors. We did a whole hot take video on how I don't think 4-color commanders are a good idea, and honestly, I don't really think easy to cast 5-mana commanders are a good idea. So like Najila or Tazri. Or Golos specifically, but like I didn't like Brawl when Niv-Mizzet, 5-color Niv-Mizzet was the best deck. Like every time you played against it, I would just scoop. Like it was kind of miserable to play against. Omnath was similar, and Golos wasn't that much better. Like I think just like Brawl is such a small card. It's actually kind of interesting comparing it to Brawl to the Sealed Box League we're doing, right? Where like Carson and Kyle, I think, are keeping track of like which decks have won, and no 2-color deck has won. In the league game so far up to this point, just only 3 colors or more, and I think the more colors you have, the more likely it is you have won your pods. And just like having every card you could ever want available just makes those decks too powerful for that format, which makes it miserable in 1v1. Especially, there's no like checks and balances. So good. So let's get questions from the chat. Would a Sol Ring deck be better than Omnath deck in Brawl? It's the issue is that every single deck would have to play Sol Ring, so all of the decks would be Sol Ring decks, which means that yes, and this is from Nolan Beck, it would be better than the Omnath deck because the Omnath deck would be playing it, but Omnath is banned, so you would get DQ'd if you're playing Omnath.
You also like so basically like this kind of brings us back to the conversation we were having a second ago about the power of Omnath and what it's doing in the various formats. And every format has sort of like a linchpin turn, like the turn where your deck sort of reaches critical mass to win the game. Modern used to be called a turn 4 format. I think it's realistically probably closer to a turn 3 format these days. But I would say that Standard historically is more like a turn 5, turn 6 format, probably like turn 6. classically. They don't want it to be too fast. So whatever that turn is, where your deck is sort of supposed to reach critical mass, a Soul Ring in a Brawl deck makes that format into a turn 1 format, whoever draws their Soul Ring, which is not that you win on turn 1, but if you draw your Soul Ring and they don't draw their Soul Ring, you will very likely win the game. It's almost impossible to think that you, in a format where the power level is standard, would ever be able to come back from that. I think the reason Soul Ring works so well in Commander is that it's multiplayer, so it's mitigated by the fact that no single advantage can be that great. And also the fact that the power level of the cards is so high that if you draw your Soul Ring and no one else does, it's okay. Like, there are 3 people to keep you in check. If 3 people draw a Soul Ring, but the 4th person doesn't, again, that person can catch up because the power level of the cards they can draw is so high. They're able to catch up. They can play a Dockside Extortionist, and they can just get that far ahead on their own. So I think a card like Soul Ring, the reason that it has such a hard time existing in a format like 1v1 Brawl or Standard is because the power level is just not nearly high enough, and it really does change it from being the format that it is into something else.
I've talked about Soul Ring needing to be banned in Commander before, right? Like, I think it won't be. I think it has the same issue that Brainstorm has in Legacy and Fetchlands have in Modern, where they're like the feature of that format. And it's so ubiquitous. I mean, I've like at this point, I've transitioned that to arguing that Mana Vault or Mana Crypt needs to be banned, just because it like is very expensive. It's free. Because it's very expensive, not everyone has it as an advantage. It's like damage does cost you something, but also is like kind of breaking the rules of what that card was balanced against, since that was balanced for 20 life and you have 40 life. But I also don't think that's going to be. I don't think either of those are banned. No, that's never going to happen. But I think like Soul Ring just like makes games swingier in a way. And since Brawl is primarily a 1v1 format, I think it's just like way too much an advantage. I don't think you can beat Soul Ring in 1v1 if that happens earlier. And it is a card that just every deck has to play, right? Like you kind of don't want that. That is the goal in Magic, I think, is for decks to not have that be a thing that's happening. And Soul Rings and Brainstorms are just so powerful that those formats require that to be a thing. And I think it would be worse.
Yeah, I think conversely, like when you go back to that same conversation of like a turn whatever format, you know, like what do things exist as? I think when you look at the power level of something like Omnath, it's the idea that if that card was to come down on the linchpin turn of the game, like if you know, let's just say, for instance, in Historic, if you were going to play that card, if Historic, you want that to be like, let's say, a turn 5 format, the power level of what you're doing on that turn 5 is so ridiculous if you come out correctly and execute, that the power level of what somebody else is doing on that very same turn, they kind of have to match it. A burn deck on turn 5 won't match what you're doing. Like there's very few things you can be doing that have so much built-in power. It's the problem with putting so many things, so many bells and whistles onto a single card.
Yeah, and I think one thing is to also consider. Yeah, I agree. I think it's just problems. So next question is, you guys made some comments. This is from Falcon 120. You guys made some comments on Omnath getting pushed to be better as a 4-color card in Standard, but I figured it was just a design for Commander that Standard was able to abuse. I do think it was designed for Commander. I think that was something they had in mind, right? Obviously, it's a legendary creature that's 4 colors. I also think that it's pushed. I think they felt like they were able to push it the way that they did because of its 4-color status in Standard. I think if it was 3-color, like they've done 3-color on Omnath, right? That card's fine. It's elemental tribal. It does something cool. I think they just like pushed it a little bit past the line.
It feels like a card that would just have been printed as like one of the Breas or the Atraxas, right? Doesn't it just feel like that's what that card is?
Correct. Yep.
It would have been dope. Like super fun. We would have seen it and all been so happy about coming like Highlander Roulette. We're like, oh, this card is dope. This card's like one of the sweetest cards in the set. I can't wait to play with this card. Which is kind of what it felt like, except it just was like, this isn't Standard. So
it's competing with the group hug deck, right? The 2/7 or whatever that like lets every player draw a card and put a card into play. So like it also, of the 5 4-color commanders that were printed, it was the one that was like the most, not necessarily pigeonholed, but the less like generically good or the least aggressive. And so it coming out with a separate optional game plan that's a little bit more classically what you want to do in Commander was probably a better choice. Next question is, this is from Oscarb 138. Ben, any sweet spicy additions for Historic Rogues decks? I've been playing a fair amount of it.
Like I said, the stuff that I've been doing that I have been happy with is the Death Touch Flying Lifelink guy, the X3. I play 2 of him now. I have been playing 2 copies of Cling to Dust in the main deck for quite a while now. I took them out at one point and was like not the most stoked on them, but there's a couple things that it does. Number one, you mill your opponent's graveyard so much naturally with all of your like Thieves Guild Enforcers and whatnot. It just cycles. So if you keep like a 1-lander, it allows you to just like draw out of it. It does allow you to hit like an Uro or a Croxa, some of the important graveyard cards, as just like a silver bullet to slow them down. And also, it's a nice hedge card to just have against burn. It's not the sweetest to obviously just like spend 1, be down a card to gain 3 life. But the fact that, you know, you're basically just countering lightning, you're countering lightning strike. And there are some inevitability situations where you can sculpt a game state, and you can play it. If you play it more than once from your graveyard and you gain 6 life, for instance, as long as you have created a clock or you're blocking well enough, the card can do something. The other thing, I'm back to playing 2 copies of Witch's Vengeance in the main. The blue-green Merfolk deck's really good. Like, that's the one I was playing before, but it's even better now with Collected Company. So having 2 of those in the main deck is really, really, really good and pretty important. It's a good way to stop the Elves deck, and it's also a really good way to kill the Goblins deck if they get going too fast.
So I have one question. So how do you feel about it now being like one of the best decks in Standard even?
I mean, Rogues, so like, it's reminiscent a little to like what Fairies was doing back in the day. It's not as good because you don't have like a Spell Stutter Sprite, you don't have like a Bitter Blossom, but it does have similar kind of feelings, like sort of vibes there. I think it's totally powerful for Standard, and I think a lot of the stuff that you can do in Historic with it, big card that you don't have is you don't have Una's Blackguard in Standard, but Blackguard's a little slow and a little weak in the deck in some situations. You really have to get the inevitability engine going. Obviously, me playing Fairy Miscreant, they just play the 1-drop. You can sacrifice to draw a card. That's the difference there. They play more copies of the 3-drop guy. They can play Rankle just like I can. And even the counterspells and Drown the Lock and stuff are just as good. So the deck's almost the same. It's just Una's Blackguard is the one difference. And I do think Blackguard adds like a really nice element because the way Curious Obsession works with Fairy Vandal, you can play an end of turn Fairy Vandal, right? Let's say your opponent tapped out. Then you play your land, Curious Obsession on your Fairy Vandal, right? Now you attack, the thing deals damage, draws you a card, puts a counter on it. It's now a 3/4, which means you now have open your counterspell. And at that point, all you have to do is play an Una's Blackguard the next turn with the counterspell up, and you have like this giant beast, this 3/4 that's going to become a 4/5 that every time it hits, you draw, they discard, and you've got a 2-mana counterspell. That's like a really, really hard thing for a lot of decks to answer when you're on the play. And Blackguard is the reason that happens. Plus, then any flash rogues you get and just become bigger. So the fact that it responds to any creature you have that has a counter on it, it doesn't need to get a counter after the Blackguard's in play. As long as it has a counter they discard, that's what's going on. So that's like sort of the big difference, I think, between Standard and Historic in that sense, is it's that one single card. But yeah, that's the main.
Two more things. One is more of a comment that I just agree with, so I want to read it out loud. It's from the YouTube side. And then the other one is the last question we're going to answer, and then we're going to do a wrap-up. From Nolan Beck, I bet you could print Hymn to Torok into Standard, and it wouldn't see play if you unbanned everything on the ban list right now. Busted year of Magic. I probably don't know how to, like, Hymn to Torok's really good, and it's good against land strategies, so that helps here. I do think I would love to see like sometime in like November, maybe when Commander Legends comes out, so everyone in Paper Magic is focused on that set. Him like a no ban list Standard, just like take every card off the ban list in Standard and let people go crazy on Arena. I think that would be really fun. One of the things Arena can do is cute stuff like that, same as like they've done the Singleton event and stuff like that. So that would be really, really sweet. And I do want to see that. I think Hymn to Torok is a very powerful card. Also, like, Grey Merchant is in this format, and if you have Hymn to Torok like end Grey Merchant, like, you lean really into mono black. I don't know. It seems really good. So the last question is, how important is it to pick up the commander staples that come in every precon now? Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Command Tower, etc. Since I've been making my first commander decks with cards I have from playing for years, I don't have them yet, and I'm going to be super far behind the average commander player if I bring the deck I've made to my LGS. I have my thoughts, but
a couple things. Yeah. So before we answer that final question, a couple things that I want to ask you guys. If you are watching, you've not already hit that thumbs up button, please do on the video. When this video is over, if you guys don't mind leaving a comment, comments are a really, really big deal on YouTube videos. They like really go a long way. The videos do better. It's also great for us to be able to hear from you guys. So do us a favor when this is over and just leave a comment about what you thought about the stream. Wait for 2 minutes until it's over and just leave a comment. It'd be awesome.
We've been posting it in Twitch, like, do the follow thing. Follow.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is streaming right now on Alex's Twitch. We kind of use it almost as like the de facto MMCast Twitch. We stream everything on his channel. I am on Twitch. So guys, twitch.tv/Ben Bateman streaming. I've been doing a little less of it this last month, but I'm in Seattle. I will be streaming the Rogues deck this week, trying to make Mythic. So go ahead and please follow me at twitch.tv/Ben Bateman streaming. And it would mean a lot to me. As I mentioned earlier in the stream, I'm interviewing Jimmy Wong. It drops this Friday. It's a great interview. It's super fun. A lot of you guys know Jimmy. You're fans of his stuff. So if you guys do want to hear that interview, go to youtube.com/nerdsandsuits. It's my passion project I've been working on. I do a lot of cool interviews on there, music content. If you haven't checked it out already, youtube.com/nerdsandsuits. It would mean a lot to me. So those are my quick plugs. Let's answer the question. So how do you feel about picking up those staples, those commander staples? Most of the ones they mentioned do feel kind of like ubiquitous, like you almost just need them in all your commander decks. Obviously the Signet, Soul Ring is a staple card. It's just really, really good. Like it's hard to play most commander decks. I feel like without those cards in them, you're kind of at a huge disadvantage. No?
I finish your thought because I have thoughts, but I want you're relatively new to the format, right? You've only really been playing for 3 months, so I'd love to hear. And you've played at weird extremes. You've played mostly CDH while touching mid-level casual. And now you've played even buy a box or box brawl. So it's interesting to hear your thoughts on it.
So in building a new deck like every week, right? So now I've built CEDH Nagila, my own twist on it. I've built CEDH Sig. I've built CEDH, one other one, I think. I've built, Joyer of the G2, and one other, I think. I think I've built four, maybe 5 decks now, actually. Plus actually the one we just built, So what I've noticed is that when you go through, there are certain things in certain colors. And so for instance, one of the questions, about the commander precon staples, right? Fierce Guardianship is a great example. Any of those free spells that came in those precons. In my opinion, I will play those free spells 100% of the time in every single commander deck that plays those colors because they're free. Because why wouldn't you? Because they're all pretty good. Even the green one's pretty good. So I think probably the answer to the question is it's incredibly important. If you are unwilling to play with proxied cards and you are planning on playing with the real cards, I think you got to look at those powerful cards that get printed into these sets, and I think you got to make sure you have them because they're like no-brainers. Now, if it's a specific archetype card you think is cool, different story. But like Arcane Signet, your deck's not going to be like that much worse if you don't play it. Soul Ring, you probably will. I just think that those cards are kind of staples and they do feel like no-brainers to most decks. Like I'm not going to play a red deck in EDH at this point unless I'm playing Dockside Extortionist, probably. I mean, I guess I could be wrong, but I think I want to play that 100% of the time.
Yeah, so I guess I disagree in 3 ways. I agree. The first one, though, is like literally buying one of those commander precons. It's like $30. You can even buy some of the old ones for cheaper, the ones that just don't have like great staples. And often they'll have Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, and Command Tower in every single one. So you can just like get those if you need them pretty easily. And I do agree with Ben. Actually, I think that most of the time, and there's years that this has not been true, but most of the time the commander products are worth the buy because there's always going to be some amount of really good cards in them, and pre-order just getting the full set isn't really a bad idea. But commander is a singleton format. So if you don't have Soul Ring in your deck, most of your opponents aren't going to play Soul Ring every game. So like it's not very different than just not having it. You are losing some percentage of value by not having it and doing sweet things by not having it. But there's definitely an argument for you not having a staple in a thing. You're not that far behind because of the inconsistency of the format. And especially with Soul Ring, where Soul Ring is a card also that like you don't tutor for it. Rarely you're going to tutor for a Soul Ring. So it's not even like one of the cards that like, oh, you don't have this staple and your deck needs it to be able to function. So your deck is behind. So I do think you can get in Commander, especially away with not having some of these staples a lot farther than you would need them because of the singleton thing of the format. Now on Command Tower, just they're not. I think you can buy them online for 10 cents. They're like in every Commander product. Even if you can't just buy a Commander product, they're in it. That one's a weird one. That I think if you're more than two colors, it's like just very good. And it makes it so you can play Magic better. Like mana fixing is always important, and it's a cheaper one than some like rare dual lands. And then I actually like Arcane Signet. I think is overrated.
I think it's like it's right. Like there are. It feels like there's 25 cards that slot in as like a pretty like reasonable comp for that card. Like
right.
It's totally good. It's just but like it's not Fierce Guardianship here. You can play like any on color Signet at all, and it's almost as good.
Yeah,
Any talisman,
I
they're almost as good.
have every 2-color combination of decks. I guess technically I am missing a blue-black one because I took pieces out of it for Cherex. And I'm not playing a Signet in 99% of them. Or 90%
I hate
of them.
Signets. I mean, I'm willing to play them because it's Commander, but I generally speaking hate Signets. I hate ramp cards. Now that is something I'm learning to come around on, but
well, sure, that's a different conversation. I guess my point is they're just fine, and in 2-color decks, I don't think it's that good. In 3-color decks and more, obviously color fixing is really good, and ramp spells are good, so it's not bad. But I'm not playing rampant growth in most of these formats, so a Signet is just the same. And unless I'm in 3 colors or more, I don't think you need it. I do want to read some of the comments based on what we were saying. Going up, because there was one. Reading is fun. J. Cool Girl, Charlotte, who is was on our stream 2 weeks ago, or last week. I don't know. Time's a flat circle. This is the first year with Signets in them. So this year. The Ikoria sets, I believe, were the first one with Signets, and then the new one has the Signet as well. Or not Signets. Yeah. Signet. Arcane Signet is what the card is called. Cool. Yes. And then right now you can pick up, also from Charlotte, right now you can pick up Zendikar Commander decks for $15 to $20 and get Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, and Command Tower plus 97 other cool cards. Yeah, that's kind of my point. It's not that expensive to get the new ones, especially, and you just get all of them. It's worth getting. I'm not arguing not to have Soul Ring in your deck, but what I will say is that if you sit down to a table and you're just new to Commander, it's your first time building it, you just don't have these cards, but you want to play now, and you don't have these cards in your deck, you're fine. The win percentage doesn't matter in this format, and it is a deck you're playing that you're not going to most of the time your opponents wouldn't draw those cards anyways, so just conceptually believe I didn't draw my Soul Ring. That's why I didn't get it, not because it's not in my deck. Yeah. I disagree with people that think Soul Ring shouldn't be in their deck. You have to have a deck that is all devotion. It's all pips. There's no colorless activation for it to be bad. But even then, when your commander dies, you can use Soul Ring to get it back. So
right.
Eventually Soul Ring should go in every deck. Unless you're all artifact board wipes.
I just think Soul Ring is the kind of one of the exceptions to the rules you're talking about. I think there are certain cards. I think there are cards the Signet is sort of generic. I think Command Tower, good card. You don't need Command Tower. You just don't. There's so many lands you could play that come in on tap. Who cares? Soul Ring, unique advantage, unique card. There's not a lot of Soul Rings. There's not a lot of things that mimic Soul Ring. Dockside in red. That's a very unique card. There's a handful of cards, Fierce Guardianship, where I do feel if you have the opportunity to play them, you probably want to, but I don't think it's a hard and fast rule. I think it's a 50-50 rule.
Commander's the game Commander's is a game that staples don't matter. And in fact, I know a lot of people, the main reason they don't play with staples is because they're sick of playing with them. That's fair. I've cast Path enough times in Commander. Do I need it in every white deck? I've cast Supreme Verdict. There's cards that just previous I was no, you can't play this game without this in your deck. And now I'm if I'm trying to cut cards and I'm at 90 or 102 and I'm looking at these are 2 cards I've cast in 1,000 Commander games, and these are 2 cards that I've never gotten to cast and would like to see how they do, I'm gonna try out the new stuff. I don't know. I think that Soul Ring should be in every deck. Even decks that don't need it, it's still going to be I would cut a basic land for it, and regularly I count it as a basic land.
And they've reprinted it a zillion times, so you can get one for $3 now or something like that. So Anyway, I think that's mostly going to wrap up the episode, unless you had a final one you wanted to respond to.
No. I do want to do last minute shout outs and thank yous. Thank you everyone who's watched live. We don't do this normally live. We do live Commander streams every Monday, so please follow. We stream both to Twitch and YouTube. In general, there was a question on what do we prefer. I would say if we're doing it live, Twitch just offers more tools and more benefits to consistent live growth. So being on Twitch is really helpful. But if you can go to the YouTube channel and and subscribe and comment on videos that have existed there in the past, or check out some of our old content, and obviously check out the podcast that we release every week directly there, not live streamed every Friday. Definitely appreciate it. And thank everyone for joining. Thank you so much, Olivia, for the raid. Make sure to follow us everywhere. I'm Kess Wiley at Kess Wiley. Ben is at Ben Bateman Media. On Twitch, he's Ben Bateman Streaming. I am dressing up as a dinosaur today, but I'm be in a Halloween costume every day this week. You can check that on Instagram, which is at Kes Wiley, or at Twitter, or everywhere else I post stuff. And thanks everyone for hanging out. And yeah, once again, please follow, please like, please subscribe. Last thing, rogues lists. Forgot about it. Ben's rogues list will be posted to Patreon tonight for free. You don't have to be a patron. It just will be on our Patreon page. Now, if you're there and you're like, hey, maybe I do want to donate to the Patreon, we appreciate it. You get the raw feed every week, which is like 10 minutes of extra content at the very beginning that only you get on the Patreon. And like today we talked about our favorite dinosaur was. Last week we talked about chips, I think. And the week before that we talked about, last week there was a whole conversation with Shivam. It was really good. So yeah, check out the Patreon.
And all kinds of
Rogues
stuff.
list is there right now for free. You don't have to be a patron to see the Rogues list, but if you're there and you want to donate, we appreciate it. And thank you to all our patrons in general. Pinkies up to the Nobles of House Modern. And thank you so much. I saluted because I'm on Action Guys, apparently.
Yeah.
And we'll be back 7:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time next Monday for another Commander stream. We'll see which costume I'm going to be wearing then. Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye, guys.
This has been a production of Time Traveler Media, sending podcasts into the future.